Hi, I'm Jack Dunigan of thepracticalleader.com. Today we're going to talk about 4 lessons from a meddling boss and why you should avoid being one. The hour was late. I was working with 2 associates on a contract project job I have with an organization on the other side of the continent. And we were preparing registrations and all of the materials for a rather large conference that was about to be held. About 1,300 plus people going to be attending this conference. So we were there trying to get everything set up, all the paperwork, all the lodging reservations, everything all set up. And it was going pretty well for us. We had the task well under control, and we were moving towards completion. We were working like a well-oiled machine, as it were, and everything was just going well except for, well, one thing. And that one thing was the boss. The man who headed up the organization was there, and no problem with him being there, except that he couldn't stay away from us. He kept coming over to adjust this and tinker with that and fiddle with this thing or that thing. Now, it's his company, he can do what he wants to, and it would have been fine if he merely came in to check on progress or came at our invitation to solve a problem. But he wasn't. He was doing far more than that. One particularly annoying interference came when late in the day he suddenly decided that the font that we use to print out confirmation letters should be changed. Now, this was back in the day when it was a lot more difficult to change fonts than it is these days. Back then, you had to go in and you had to change code and you had to adjust this thing and that thing. And the problem was that when you changed the font, it also changed all the formatting. So you had to adjust margins, you had to adjust spacing. It wasn't like today when you just simply highlight the desired text, go up to the top of the page, select a font, bang, bada bing, it's all done. No, back then it was complicated. So the result was not a simple interference. It stopped everything because we were waiting to process forms which had to be printed, and then once they were printed, then these forms had to be filed and sorted and sent into confirmation envelopes that were mailed out to the people who were coming, and then the duplicates had to be put over in another file for the registration that was going to be on site. All of that was going on. Everything stopped because he felt like that we needed to change fonts. Now, there's nothing wrong with the font we were using. It was perfectly fine. It was highly readable. It was utilitarian. And a font change made no difference in the outcome whatsoever except to slow things down. So the question has to be asked, why did he do this? Why did he come in and do that? Well, there were 2 reasons why. I worked for him for a while, 2 or 3 years, on one project after another. And I saw this as a repetitive pattern. He kept doing it. And so the question was why? Number 1, to show us that he could. He wanted everybody to know just who the boss was and how technically superior he was to us mere mortals. Now, I'm not exaggerating, and this is not sour grapes. It was a good 3 years to be there. I made a lot of money while I was there, and I had a lot of contacts. But this was an annoying thing that got in the way. He really had this sort of attitude that people needed to know that he knew more than everybody else. He found it necessary to demonstrate that he worked harder and longer than anybody else. And we were there all day, a lot of it fouled up by this guy who simply wouldn't stop meddling. He kept coming in, stopping the flow of work, making unnecessary adjustments, and then retreating to his office. Now, I'd expected by 5 in the afternoon he'd go home and leave us in peace. I had keys to the work area. I'd been tutored on how to set alarms and the lockup procedure for the building, but not him. He remained there and continued his regular incursions up through the end of the day and beyond. He would not give up. He wasn't going to leave. He absolutely had to be the last man standing. So finally, it occurred to me what we were going to have to do. I conferred briefly with my 2 associates who were working with me, and I announced then to the boss we were leaving for the day. Then we all left the building, and instead of going to our cars and going home, we hid behind some bushes near the entrance of the building, and sure enough, in just a few minutes, the door opened, Out he came now that he could say and prove that he was the last guy there, that he worked harder than anybody else, that the whole place would fall apart if he didn't stay there and handle everything until late in the day because these morons still didn't have the work done. He was able now to go home. What did? We went back in and finished our work. Now I want to assure you the problem was not us. The work we were doing matched the standard required by the organization. We were doing precisely what we were hired to do. We were not trying to make shortcuts or compromise the integrity of the process anyway. My biggest challenge in the entire conference coordination contract was fending off constant interference from the CEO. He just would not leave well enough alone. Now, I call guys like Mr. Wonder campfire legends in their own mind. They sit around boardroom conference tables and pepper the conversation with what I call thinly veiled PSAs, praising self-announcements. They drop these little things around to let everybody know around the board table how very, very, very important they are to save the organization from disaster were it not for their interference. Now, some are unfortunate enough to endure them. Others, who are sycophantic enough to adore them, are then constantly regaled with tales of how the hero had to step in at the last minute, or those morons would have sent out those letters with the wrong font. Can you imagine that? They were about to send out those letters with the wrong font. Now, I've heard him tell these stories, so I know he does it. I'm not making this up. I actually sat in board meetings with him where he would talk about how he had saved the organization from somebody doing something that was in the end trivial. It made no difference whatsoever. All right, so there's 4 lessons that I've pulled from all of this for all of us who are leaders and managers of other people. Lesson number 1 is this. An overly engaged boss can create self-induced turbulence. In flying, it's called pilot-induced turbulence, and it comes from handling on the controls so tightly that you cause problems. It results from overcorrecting and too tight control. Nothing works with 100% efficiency. Nothing whatsoever works with 100% efficiency anywhere in the world. So we need to maintain control in general, but allow some latitude in how things are done. We want to keep our eye on the product and less on the process. I want to say that again. We want to keep our eye on the product and less on the process. Lesson number 2, meddling is not managing. You might think it is, but it isn't. Meddling is not managing. To meddle is to interfere officiously and unwantedly, to come in when your presence is resented. Times when you're going to come in and teach and instruct and lead and guide, and there's going to be times when you need to leave people alone. To manage is to direct, govern, or control. Managers and leaders, at least the effective ones, know when to engage, and as importantly, they know when not to. They know when to stay away and let somebody do their job. Number 3. Intervene only when you must. Save up your interventions for times of crisis and for that teachable moment when somebody is ready to learn. Effective leaders, effective managers bring people to teachable moments when they're open to receiving direction and input, not any other time. Your job is so much more than getting the work done. It also involves developing capable people who will do what? Get the work done. If you've been to thepracticalleader.com, you'll see the tagline at the top, which says how to reach further, accomplish more, work less. To extend your reach, multiply your effectiveness, and divide your work. Now, you risk compromising your ability to do that when you interfere too much. Obsession over process often sabotages the product. Being obsessive over how things are functioning, how things are being done, often gets in the way of getting them done. And in the end, being practical leaders, being practical managers, what we're interested in is production, in making widgets, in providing services, in meeting customer expectations, in doing the work that we feel we are called and enabled and empowered and paid to do. So we don't want to obsess over the process as much as we are over the quality of the product that those processes yield. And lesson number 4, meddling corrodes your power connection. Mr. Wonder, that I reference above, has a long, long history of failure to attract and retain independent people who would make his work easier and in the end far more productive. But he's not been able to do that. Why? Because his constant need to meddle and his incessant desire to be able to assure his board that were it not for him, the organization would have collapsed long ago, perpetuates an atmosphere of dependency and weakness. It feeds the frustration and fuels more war stories about how no decent employees are ever available and how everyone must be constantly managed and how there's always constant pressure and, well, you get the idea. You end up attracting people who actually need that level of interference, which takes away your productive time from doing those things that only you can do. Remember, effective leaders focus on those things that only they can do, and they give everything else away. Mr. Wonder couldn't do it. It was his personal interest to maintain the problem, even while it increased inefficiency and decreased effectiveness. This sort of thing is found way, way too often in leadership and management dynamics. So my question for you as we finish this up is, how well are you doing? Can you be confident that you're intervening only when you're needed? Are you developing capable people, or are you perpetuating an environment of weakness? Now, we've dedicated ourselves at thepracticalleader.com to providing practical advice to reach further, get more done, work less, to extend your reach, multiply your effectiveness, and divide your work. And you can find out a lot more tips, tricks, and techniques at thepracticalleader.com. We'll see you next week. Now, if you like this video, please hit that little like button down below and hit the subscribe button so you'll know when we post a new video. We post one every Friday, and we look forward to seeing you again very soon.